do with that number? 70%. Not only do they usually not give that sort of guidance, but giving such a large guidance that itself was supply constrained.
This is like beyond what you could have ever imagined, right? And so what do I do with it? I analyze it, and it's in a supply-constrained environment. So that means this 70% is going to be reached quarter after quarter. So if you break it down, it's 15% growth every quarter from like the kind of $110 billion they guided for the next quarter. That means at the end of next year, they will be on a run rate of making $1 trillion of annualized revenues. That's a big take. This is actually something Jensen hints towards back in March at GTC when he talked about the $1 trillion orders he got in so far on the Rubin and Blackwell systems.
But given the stellar results, is there anything that was cautious to you, whether it was the merger, the margins, the competition, anything bring to you any caution to circular financing that they had to address when it comes to this name?
Well, so I think the guide they gave is supply constrained. We follow the whole supply chain. We look very closely at who's deploying what. We do think demand is significantly above that. So the things that could keep me nervous would be supply issues. And one of the things we discussed last night with management was, this like mounting feud against data centers in the US, people like feeling uncomfortable with these giant data centers popping up in their communities. So that's one of my concerns. And then on the supply chain, I would actually say so far, if you look at the track record of the supply chain, at actually pushing the limit a bit further every quarter, I do think we have very good chances that at the end of the day, Nvidia beats that 70% guide, because remember, it's supply constrained. And when you look at your supply over the next 12 months, you're usually on the cautious side. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a tiny bit more growth next year.
And when Colette Kress was speaking to you all on the call, and she was talking about the financing that they were doing, she said the majority of that is going to fixing this, is going to the supply chain. Does that alleviate some of the concerns about circular financing if the goal of the financing is to help the supply chain and thus get that 70% look more like 100%?
That's a very, very good question, Dani. And it alleviates some concerns, but not these concerns, because the reality is that people who want to invest in this data center, they're like standing in line and waiting for it. And you have all the hyperscalers, they have trillions of dollars they can invest in these data centers. But it's actually alleviating the concern of Nvidia, who doesn't want to see people deploying compute depending on hyperscalers who are also developing their own chips. So Nvidia says, come to me, invest in a data center with our technology, and don't you worry about financing. We have you covered. Look at our balance sheet. Very, very smart, and a very good way to protect their ecosystem.
And speaking of the hyperscalers, when they're obviously projecting 70% growth next year, does this mean that they're expanding beyond the hyperscalers to other areas?
Yes, but not that much, actually. Hyperscaler CapEx are still growing very, very fast. We do expect hyperscalers to actually burn free cash flow next year, like something around $100 billion, because their CapEx is probably going to approach $1 trillion. But at the same time, this financing headed towards what we call the neo-cloud. So these like smaller, very agile teams who can like pull together power, shell, and land very fast together are actually representing a growing part of the market. They were maybe, they are now like approaching more than 50% of the market, and so the hyperscalers are slowly coming down in the mix.
One of the other interesting facets of this ecosystem is just the price of using AI is collapsing. I mean, you get these new models coming to market, and we don't know where they've come from, and they're performing nearly as well as the LLMs, and they're free, if not something close to free. Is there a necessary tension in the idea that the product itself, that is models and AI, is becoming very cheap, but the cost of building the ecosystem is still very expensive with the supply constraints?
Yes, it's a very good question. And so all this is very new, but just think about a product you know very well, your iPhone. Your iPhone has increased more than 2x in prices over the last 15 years, right? Now, the cost of one transistor on the chip of your iPhone has come down by a 10,000x over that period. but you're having 1 million more transistors on your iPhone than you had 15 years ago. So the token is the new transistor. Price per token will keep coming down like very, very rapidly, even faster than the transistor. But the amount of tokens you're using, there is no limit. And like Elon Musk likes to put it, there is no limit to the demand for intelligence. And as long as intelligence can deliver value, like growth in the number of tokens will always exceed the pace at which the cost per token is coming down.
Jensen Huang wants open source modeling so much because it just means more people can adopt it.
More people can adopt it, and open source means you're a smaller organization. You can't develop your own chip, and he likes that.